Hello, and welcome to this edition of Arlington Public News. I'm Paul Werlin.
And I'm Carla Dorado. At Arlington Public News, we bring you stories of interest to Arlington and surrounding communities.
In tonight's newscast, we have the details on upcoming town elections. We look at a timeline for the possible property tax override and tell you about changes that could be in store for those who want to build bigger homes in Arlington.
Plus, contemplating stereotypes, how strong images and words can cause us to rethink preconceptions. That and more next.
We begin with highlights of the many government happenings in town, from money for schools to proposed restrictions on new homes.
Reporter Paola Tristan Arruda joins us with more. Paola?
Thanks, Carla and Paul. At the last Board of Selectmen meeting, they discussed a Proposition 2.5 override or debt exclusion. It's estimated the tax override could address the town's growing school enrollment. The board also discussed a potential vote to increase property taxes later this year on school funding. Board members estimated that as much as $37 million is needed for additions to the Thompson Elementary School and the Ottoson Middle School, or renovate and reopen the former Gibbs School. That amount would fund a feasibility study for a new high school. At a recent Arlington Redevelopment Board meeting, the board did not endorse a citizen's proposal to restrict the size of residential homes, but did endorse its own proposed measures intended to influence development, but not hurt it. Here's more from the meeting.
Article 9 is another incremental approach to controlling the size of new development in Arlington. Yes, it did come from the master planning process, where participants said they wanted to see the new growth in Arlington concentrated along the commercial corridors and to protect the neighborhoods. This change will, it's a fairly simple change. It will change the percentage of the lot that must be open space.
I think this requirement goes further than a modest change. I was a naive young family. I didn't even recognize that this would be something I would be talking about one day. I was just trying to get kids to bed at like 7 at night and get us up and out the door and get to work on time. And that's what Arlington provides for us, because I have to get into the city to work. I can do that reasonably. I can get home before 7 and put my kids to sleep, which is very important to me. I don't want to move further away where that now becomes impossible. And a lot of the families I talk about who are at the schools here, this is all of our concern, and not some of them couldn't get here tonight because they couldn't get babysitters. So we're here, and my wife's at the other meeting, and we had to spend $100 just to do this tonight and find, luckily, a teenager in our neighborhood that could come babysit our kids. But it's very important to us, and I think it's very important to young families that want to stay in this town.
Joe Barr, Park Street in East Arlington, and the co-chair of the recently mentioned Master Plan Implementation Committee. We did have a long discussion about this in our meetings, and whether 40% was the appropriate number, and I think we do want to make sure, our intent certainly was to make sure that this wasn't a huge impact. And so I guess I would just say that if the further analysis or further discussion shows that it is in fact there is something unintended happening here, then perhaps we should consider whether 40% is the right number.
This is one area where I step back from my colleagues a little bit. I don't think I can fully support this with the 40% requirement.
I do think it would be better for this board to have unanimity if we can do it. So my question to you, Mr. Chair, is can you get behind a 35%?
I can get behind the tool here. It's the percentage that I'm not completely comfortable.
I know,
so
and
I
that's
think
why
35% is something that I could support, and I did think about this in the meantime, and I think putting it in front of town meeting for further discussion and debate is wise.
Right. On Article 9, to approve the recommendation of the proposed vote as set forth, with the change of 40% down to 35%. So I guess that's the only change, actually. 35% in all 3 places.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All of the proposed measures will go before town meeting in April. Back to you, Carla.
Town Election Day 2016 is quickly approaching. On Saturday, April 2nd, Arlington residents will cast their votes in a number of contests, including open races for the Board of Selectmen and the school committee. 3 candidates are vying for 2 seats on the school committee. Newcomers James Doherty and Lynn Carden face incumbent Kiersey Allison Ampey. In the selectmen's race, Maria Romano is once again challenging longtime selectman Kevin Greeley. Tune in to ACMi's government channel and online at www.acmi.tv for more on the candidates and to watch the debates. ACMi is also airing the recent Candidates Night sponsored by the League of Women's Voters. And be sure to tune in on Saturday, April 2nd, as APN and ACMi host live election coverage with ballot returns beginning at 7:30 p.m.
The Arlington Department of Public Works has a busy season ahead. They'll be working with Mass DOT on the Arlington Center Safe Travel Project. Construction begins in April and aims to make a safer connection for users of the Minuteman Bikeway at the intersection of Massachusetts Avenue and Pleasant and Mystic Streets. We'll have more on that in another newscast, but first we have details on other DPW projects around town.
As the winter season comes to a close, we talked with the Arlington Department of Public Works to see how they utilize their snow funds, as well as what their plans are for spring.
Well, we prepared for this winter like we would any winter, because not knowing what we're gonna get for snowfall. Obviously, we had a milder winter than we did last year, but we still obviously had needs to address certain storms we did get throughout the year. Last year, it really highlighted the fact that the MBTA doesn't have the resources to maintain those bus stops. It was fairly obvious after last winter. And so we decided this year that we would try to make a greater effort to do that. And so what we did is, after at least a day or two after a storm, when we've been able to take care of all of the roadways and sidewalks issues, we sent a crew out and we would go end to end on Mass Ave and shovel out a section of the bus stop to allow people to get in and out of the buses. And we did do that probably 2, 3, 4 times this year after greater snowfall events that we had. Well, our snow budget last year was about $750,000. This year was about $800,000 plus or minus. Last year we spent about $2.3 million, so way over budget, and this year we'll probably come in right at budget. Well, every year the roads get some damage from winter, potholes, plow damage, whatever. Now we try to address that as it occurs. We have equipment that we can patch potholes during the winter, or as long as it's not freezing temperatures. So we try to address it as it occurs, but in the spring, the thawing and the spring rains exacerbate some of those problems. So we just have an ongoing program of fixing potholes, which we do all year long. Now, if a road deteriorates so much that now the entire road needs to be replaced, we would put that in our paving program and completely restore a road. But typically, a road doesn't deteriorate that much from one winter's use. And then if it's a mild spring, we can get into concrete sidewalk repair, and the things we do every year, we can just start sooner than typical if it's mild.
On behalf of Michael, my name is Stephanie Francis, and this is Arlington Public News.
You know, Carl, there's a lot of stuff going on in town. Construction projects, as you know, we just finished the Mass Ave Rehabilitation Project in East Arlington. That looks great. And there's a lot of other stuff going on as well.
Yeah, and I think connecting the bike paths, making it a safer little transit area for everybody is going to be a wonderful thing. Coming right up after the break, find out how you can positively affect the climate right here in Arlington. Stay with us. The issue of climate change took center stage at the 2016 EcoFest held at Town Hall on Saturday, March 19th. Those attending visited the dozens of tables hosted by vendors, town clubs, and committees to find out about everything from composting to solar panels. They also took in the dioramas of trash formations, a student exhibit of recycled art. APN was there as well and brings you this report.
Hi, this is Katie Chang for Arlington Public News. I'm here today at Arlington Town Hall for EcoFest, a community-wide celebration for the environment. This year's focus is on climate change.
This year, I have to say, the theme was a little bit hard because most of us think about climate change on a more global level, like what's happening with the weather, what about the flooding that could happen, what about all the heat. So it was hard to think in terms of how do you bring that down to the local level and what people can think about doing in their homes, in your individual lifestyle. But after a lot of brainstorming and kind of beating of bushes, I think we did a good job of coming up with vendors that could really help us think about that.
Well, our focus is sustainable farming practices. We use all organic methods, and we bring the community. We invite the community to be a part of the farm through volunteering, through education programs, and our CSA program. So we want community members to learn about how to affect climate change and their environment by supporting local food and the local food system.
Well, we're here today showing our permeable pavers that it's a different type of base underneath the pavers that allow for the stormwater to enter into the base and go back into the subgrade and recharge the groundwater while also cleaning out a lot of the pollutants in the stormwater.
We are an organization mobilizing for a switch to clean energy for our entire state and eventually the whole country. So we're a movement that started in Massachusetts and we are going national. We are mothers, grandmothers, caretakers, parents, people who want to provide a safe and sustainable future for our children.
So we've actually started a day school climate change curriculum this year, and we've been teaching climate change in after-school programs as well. So it's really just getting kids aware of the issue, getting them to understand it on an age-appropriate level, and getting them to realize that their actions have consequences, and this is a challenge that they're going to be facing.
Wrapping up today for EcoFest, this is Katie Chang for Arlington Public News.
The Arlington Center for the Arts is playing host to a new photography exhibit, and they want your input. Stereotypes, a conscious look at race, faith, gender, and sexual identity, is on display now through April 15th. APN has more on the exhibit and how the artist is soliciting feedback on the show.
Hi, this is Katie Chang. I'm here to meet with Linda Shoemaker of the Arlington Center for the Arts and Mary Harrison of the Diversity Task Force to talk with them today about a new photography exhibit called Stereotypes.
We thought we would do some work on programs with stigmatizing people and stereotyping. Then a friend of mine suggested that an exhibit that was then running in Maynard, and it was called Stereotypes, which is this show, might be interesting to us. So I read further in the information about how Kevin Briggs, the photographer and creator of this show, came to do the show. And I knew that this was the next event in Diversity series. With his images that he is showing us, he is giving voice and visibility to people who are not seen or heard for who they really are. There are pictures for several groups. One would be a group of women, women from different races, actually. Then there are sexual identity and gender pictures. There are several pictures related to faith, and there are a number of pictures related to what I would call race or ethnicity. And so onto each of those groups would be projected stereotype words that are used for either that particular ethnicity or religion or group.
We're really delighted for the Arlington Center for the Arts to be able to host this wonderful photographer and to co-sponsor with all of these other groups in Arlington. We have 19 co-sponsors along with the Vision 2020 Diversity Task Force and the Arlington Center for the Arts. So the fact that that many groups and organizations and individuals have come together to bring this show to Arlington really says to us, I think, that this is a conversation that we want and need to have in Arlington right now. Part of Kevin's show and his real request for people who come to see the photos is to get feedback. So we are really going to encourage people when they're here to take some time and sit down and give him some feedback. I know his goal over time is to collect a lot of feedback from people who see this show and put together a book that will include the photographs, the statements from the sitters, and then the reactions from the viewers. And I think he's onto a really powerful idea. When people come see the show, they'll be able to read personal comments from each of the sitters that really deepen the experience of seeing the portrait. And I think some really interesting conversations have emerged and will continue to emerge in that collective community conversation.
Be sure to stop by the ACA soon to see the exhibit. For Arlington Public News, I'm Katie Chang.
Kevin Briggs got a lot of people talking with that exhibit. There was a lot of Twitter I heard going on the Arlington list. Some people were quite shocked by it, and I think that was a good thing.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's nothing wrong with challenging people's stereotypes, and that's exactly what he's trying to do. After the break, a look at a low-cost way to attend the finest museums around Boston.
Welcome back. Attending a museum around Boston can be costly, but if you plan ahead, there is a way to save by utilizing your public library. We have more now on the Museum Pass program through Arlington's Robbins Library.
This is Margaret Broad from Arlington Public News, and I'm here at Robbins Library to speak with Assistant Director Maura Didi about the museum passes that they offer to Arlington residents. Would you mind telling us more about the program and the passes that the library offer?
Sure. So we offer a Museum Pass program for Arlington residents. We offer 18 passes to a variety of museums in the area, in Boston and surrounding areas, including the MFA, Museum of Science, Einstein's Workshop, Discovery Museum.
Where are the passes available? Can you reserve them in person or online?
Both, actually. So it's easiest to reserve them online. You can go to our website, www.robbinslibrary.org, and click on Museums Passes, and you'll see the list of the 18 different museums. And there's online booking. And you can also give us a call, and we'll be happy to help you over the phone or even in person next time you're at the library.
Are there any specific rules or restrictions that come along with the pass?
We do limit our passes to Arlington residents only. The program is sponsored through the generosity of the Friends of Robbins Library organization. So through membership and book sales, they fund all these passes. So we do limit it to Arlington residents. There are some penalties if passes aren't picked up. It's $5 if you don't pick it up or cancel after 10 a.m. And we have a very low not picked up rate. So the majority of the passes are being used. And there is a penalty if they're returned late as well, because that means the pass isn't available for another patron to use. But that doesn't happen too frequently, luckily.
From my understanding, it seems that they're unavailable often. Do you have any recommendations for this, like how long in advance they should be reserved?
Yeah, so it is a very popular program, and some of the museums like the MFA, Museum of Science, Children's Museum, the Aquarium are some of the more popular museums, and those get booked up quickly. So my suggestion is to book early if you can, especially for weekends. We do offer the passes 60 days in advance, so you can go online and book them in advance. But it's a good opportunity to just explore some of maybe our passes that aren't at that sort of, the top 5 that we offer. For example, there's the Discovery Museum in Acton, which has a lot of features like the Museum of Science, very interactive educational science displays, and it's about a half-hour drive from Arlington, the same that it will take you to the Museum of Science. So if something is booked, it might be a good opportunity to explore some of the other quality institutions in our area that we offer memberships to.
Thank you for joining us and sharing your knowledge on the program.
Great. Thank you so much for coming.
From Arlington Public News, this is Margaret Broad.
APN recently tagged along on a tour of the Oldchuan Mill. The mill has been located in Arlington Heights since the Civil War era. Here's a look at how workers are keeping the tradition of making oval wooden frames alive.
The Oldchuan Mill in Arlington is the oldest continuously operating mill site in the United States. Its history dates back to 1630 when the first English Puritan colonists settled in Cambridge. Since 1630 and for the next 235 years, the site would be home to a constantly evolving set of structures, including a water wheel, steam turbine, and workshops, which would power the evolving uses of the mill, which over the years included everything from spice manufacturing and making piano cases to constructing the oval picture frames that the mill is most well known for today. The Schwann family, which the mill is named after, first acquired the mill property in 1864. The Schwann family had immigrated from Germany and converted the mill to woodworking, especially for the use of making signature oval picture frames. In 1888, a water turbine was added to the mill to supplement the existing steam engine power.
The water used to run in here under the bottom of the building. The wheel itself did not look like your classical mill with a wheel on the outside. It was inside, under the ground, inside, lower than the level of the ground. This was real useful when things froze solid around here.
Since 1969, the mill has been funded through a combination of donors and tenants, which over the years have included artisans specializing in areas from pottery, silver making, printmaking, design and manuscript making, to sculpture and a string instrument workshop. To this day, Schwann frames and moldings are in major art museums in the United States and are included in the collections of the White House, the Vatican, Buckingham Palace, the Palace of the Kings of Hawaii, and the collection of Queen Sylvia of Sweden. Today, the mill exists as a living museum that honors the heritage of the site while continuing to operate as a workshop space, accurately reflecting the living American history that it represents. For more information or to schedule a tour, please visit www.oldchuanmill.org.
You know, the Oldchuan Mill, that's one of my favorite buildings in Arlington. Arlington used to be full of mills back when, and it's the only surviving mill left in town.
It is a beautiful place. I've seen some beautiful exhibits and got a few meetings there. It's lovely. We're lucky to have it.
Yes.
Well, thank you all for joining us this week to explore local events and issues affecting Arlington. Check out extended interviews at our latest segments on the web at newsacmi.tv. Please join us next time for another edition of Arlington Public News. I'm Carla Dorado.
And I'm Paul Werlin. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Arlington Public. We leave you now with a look at some spring images around Spy Pond. We thank intern Michael Lang along with editor Jared Sweet for leaving us with happy thoughts of spring.
Thanks for joining us. Happy spring.